Greetings, Internet, and welcome back for another episode of Dummy Diaries. For today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of puppets from the 1970s. Some of you may be aware of a lot of the scam products and misleading advertising in the back of comic books and other such materials back in the 1970s and 80s and way farther back than that. Well, the figures I'm going to be working on today are no exception. For you see, the figures we're working on today, Archie, who is known as either Archie my buddy or Archie the Wonder Boy, and his friend Dumbo the Clown, were released through the Johnson Smith Company, and I believe, according to the advertising, they were exclusively through the Johnson Smith Company, which would later become known as Things You Never Knew Existed. And, well, let's just say they, for a lot of little kids back in the 70s and 80s, these guys did not live up to the hype. But then again, for only like $3, what were little kids expecting to get? And I can tell you what they were expecting to get. They were expecting to get like a full-size ventriloquist figure that you could like put your hand in the back and like move the head around and stuff with a control stick. But what they got instead were these little goofballs. This one's Archie, and you can guess that this one's Dumbo. So, the figures that I was able to find, and the ones that we're going to be discussing and working on in today's video, they're missing a few bits and pieces. Like, obviously, Archie here is supposed to have a couple little plastic hands, and a couple little plastic boots to represent feet. And Dumbo is missing much of the same, only throughout the years he was lucky enough to retain one of his feet. The other one has been lost to time. Another issue with these particular poor little puppets, which is what we're going to be addressing right off the bat, is the fact that the mouth mechanism on these is no longer properly functional. Because what you're supposed to do is counterintuitive to basically any other ventriloquist puppet that I've dealt with. And I'm referring to like the children's toy puppets from like the Juro Novelty Company, the EG Company, or even the Horseman Doll Company. With all of those, there is a rubber band that would be inside the neck that would be attached to the base of the jaw, which would hold the jaw shut, so when you pull the string, the jaw would open. With Dumbo and Archie here, there's supposed to be an elastic cord that would run from the back of the mouthpiece to a little spot in the top of the head. If you notice, he's got this little dimple right here. And the little piece of elastic cord would hold the mouth open so that when you pull the little piece of thread that sticks out the back, it would close the mouth, like so. So what we're going to be doing for this video, for this portion of the video I should say, is we're going to be figuring out just how exactly to replace that. I've got a theory on how to do that, so without further ado, let's jump right into that restoration. Alright, so first things first, we want to glove up, because Archie and Dumbo here are absolutely filthy. Okay, so when it comes to these puppets, apparently it's fairly easy to remove the heads on at least the Archie puppets. Dumbo here, his head is pretty firmly stitched on. With Archie, they used a piece of elastic cord to hold the cloth body onto the head. So all you have to do is just gently but firmly, just kind of tug on that, like so, and ta-da! We have removed his head. Now the body can be set aside after I unstuff it, but the body can be set aside to be washed. The only thing keeping his little cloth self looking the way it was were some wadded up bits of paper towel. And voila. So again, we can set that aside to be washed. With Dumbo here, though, like I said, that head is pretty firmly on there, and I don't want to go ripping this old fabric trying to get it off. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to dip into my sewing supplies and get my seam ripper, and going to just gently undo the seams right around Dumbo's neck area here. Just going to go in and go like pop, 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 and then pop his head off. So one moment. Alright, so here's that nice little seam ripper all ready to go. Now this is kind of a delicate procedure because of how old this fabric is. So I'm going to be gentle about it, at least as gentle as I can be. Well, first I got to unstuff him. Now I can do this thing far more easily, I hope. Now this is part of the reason why I've got to be so careful. This blow molded plastic is very, very thin, and I do not even want to go breaking him before I've even attempted to start to fix him, because we don't want to add more problems to the list these figures already have. Aha. Okay. Now we just need to find a good spot to insert the seam ripper and do the thing. Okay, finally, after like far too much effort, I managed to get enough of the stitches taken off that it feels like I should be able to just, aha, there we go. Dumbo's head is now loose from his body. So I'm just going to go ahead and gently decapitate him, like so. And from what I heard, it should be fairly easy to remove the arms and feet. Yeah, like that. Alright. So now Dumbo's body right here is able to be washed. So I will set that aside so I can do just that very thing after we get the heads taken care of. So when it comes to the heads of these little goobers, from what it seems, since the plastic is so thin and malleable and easily worked with, from what I can tell, it should be, emphasis on should be, possible to just wedge something up inside the mouth here. Like, it'll be easier with Dumbo here because he's got this big old gap behind his jaw, but with our little friend Archie here, it's going to be a bit more difficult. But it should be a matter of wedging something up inside in that gap right about, if I can get that on camera. It'll be easier to see with Dumbo. Well, let me get some light behind him. Yeah, I know it's kind of a horrifying sight right there, but you should be able to see that right up here there is a bit of plastic where a little peg from the jaw comes out and slots in there to hold it in place. It should be possible to wedge something inside here and either push the plastic over here away from the peg and just wiggle it out, or to push the jaw away from the side of the mouth and wiggle it out that way. But again, with this plastic being so old and being cheap, blow molded kind of stuff, I'm worried about snapping off the peg and not being able to put the mouth back in, so this is going to be a tricky, or as Toy Polloi would say, a rather fiddly job. So give me a moment, folks. I'm going to go track something down to put in there as a kind of pry bar, and we'll see what happens. Alright, I'm going to try using a letter opener. Thankfully this is one of those dull ones, so it shouldn't do any actual real damage to the plastic, but I won't know until we get started, so fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise I'm going to wind up with a new repair I'm going to have to figure out how to do. Just gently, ever so gently, work on. Okay, it is officially actually out of the hole, and his jaw is off. I just have to gently wiggle the other one out. There. We have officially removed Dumbo's lower jaw. So if anyone's ever wondered what that piece looks like outside of the head, there you go. So with Dumbo here, the plastic was a bit more thin and flimsy around the mouth, and like I said, he already had that wider gap that I could get the letter opener through. So we're going to set him off to the side, and here's what I was talking about, that elastic cord, which, as you can see, would have strung up like this through the mouth and held the jaw open until you pull the string. Alright, so Dumbo, we're going to set you and your jaw over here, and we're going to fight with Archie next. Come on, give me your jaw. Out of context, that sounds really weird, but that's what we're going for here. Got it. Okay. Of course, now the other side needs to be tricky on me. There we go. Okay. Double check, make sure I didn't do too much, if any, damage to him. No, he's good. Alright. I forgot to mention, while I was trying to remove the stitching on Dumbo's outfit, I accidentally tore off one of the little pieces of vinyl that was on his little shirt collar. But, whatever. I can deal with it. Alright then. So, let's see, do they have the same lower jaw mold? Was the company that made these that cheap? Yes. As a matter of fact, they were. Right, Archie was the one that had the thing in his teeth, Dumbo did not. Okay, so, whoop, there we go. Bring it down. So here's Archie's lower jaw, and here's Dumbo's lower jaw. The exact same shaped piece of plastic. Alright, so I don't mix these up. I'm going to put that here, I'm going to put that there. Okay. So for this next step, I'm going to clean these heads up, and because I've got it, the boot. And then we're going to move on to actually repairing the mouth mechanism. Normally I would go ahead and use a spring, but I don't currently have any pen springs at hand, and for those who want to have these as close to original as possible, we're going to be using what they would have been using back then, which is literally just some elastic cord. So, a moment while I gather the materials to clean them up. For this next bit, you're going to need some warm soapy water, some warm non-soapy water for rinsing. For the actual scrubbing and dealing with getting all the grime and stuff off, I suggest using a soft bristle toothbrush, as well as some cotton swabs. Let's get those in camera. You'll also want a towel or paper towels. First thing, we're going to use the soapy water for the initial dunking. Alright, so we're going to start with Archie. Here we go. Just kind of roll him around in those soap suds. And we'll pull him out and let him drain. Grab our little toothbrush, and we begin. And remember, you don't want to scrub too hard because of how cheaply these little fellas were made. You could very easily just scrub that paint right off. So I'm working more on the inside of this little fella, at least to start. For the outside, I'm going to use cotton swabs and paper towels. I say I'm going to do one thing and then I do another. Like I said, be very gentle. One thing you can do is you can work on a spot that's not going to be extremely visible, especially if these are just going to be for display, and gently try scrubbing at it. And if you see the paint starting to flake away, which it seems like it's doing, I'm being dumb and continuing, but just want to see. It seems like the brush is a bit too much for Archie's paint. So we're going to get the Q-tips. And we're going to continue on from there. It's part of the reason why these puppets are so rare is because of the fact they were produced so cheaply. Alright. So dip our Q-tip down into agua. And we scrub. You see it right there? All that red right there is literally the paint just coming right off. So I'm just going to kind of spot clean the spots where there's dirt just on the head. It might also actually just be a better idea to just clean this to the best of your ability and then touch up the paint where it keeps coming off, because that is ridiculous. That is absolutely stinking ridiculous. And remember, folks, because that paint is so delicate, you want to rub more than you want to scrub. Instinctively, I really want to just get in there and start grinding on this thing with the Q-tip to get that stuff out. Because there's annoying little spots like that right there on his hat that I know I can get off of there. But I don't want to have a bunch of big old spots that I'm going to have to go back in and repaint later because I got impatient. That's about as much as I want to do because there is too much paint coming off of his hat. I could very easily just like tape this off and then get a red spray paint and just redo it. But I want to keep Archie here as original as possible, so no, we're not doing that. Unless absolutely necessary. And I see now those things I was trying to scrub off on the front of the hat here were just splatters of red paint. I'll just adjust the light here. See right there, the spots I was just complaining about. And the spot that I just scraped off the side of his hat, pull that back a bit, was more red paint. Darn it. Alright, so Again, being very gentle. I'm going to try and get the dirt and gunk off of his face while avoiding his eyes. His eyebrows I'm not too fussed about, but I don't want to ruin his eyeballs. So that would be a beast to try and repaint those the way they were done back in the factory without the original patterns where they just went like bink. If anyone's seen the introduction to Child's Play 3, where they're rebuilding Chucky and they put the faceplate on him and just put his freckles and stuff on, that's basically what they did with these things. And like I was saying about paint splatter, there's some of the, it looks like that's some of the blue that would be on his hat, just on his upper lip. That I don't mind if I wind up scraping that off. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to deal with that real quick. Use the gum massaging side of this toothbrush and just try and gently rub it off. It's not going to work out that way. There we go. It's flaking off with my fingernail. There. Ta-da! There's probably some of you in the viewing audience going, no, why'd you do that? You should leave it on there for authenticity. I don't care about the authenticity of there being an extra splatter of paint on his upper lip. I want him to look as good as he can for what he is. Alright. Now we dip him back into that soapy water. Roll him around. And we dump the water right back out. Blah. And so we swap out the soapy water with the non-soapy water. Because this is the point where we rinse and de-soapify the little dork. Second time, just to make sure we got out all the soap. Okay. Didn't really get to do much, but surprisingly he is actually looking a bit better now, even with what little I did. Oh, it's an actual scratch in the plastic. Excuse me. Okay. So Archie, we're going to just set you over here. And now we're going to work on your mouth. Now what I should do, which is what I think I'm actually going to do, is unknot this string from the back of his mouth. Let's start with that elastic cord, because it's so worn out that I can just yank it off of there like that. There we go. They double knotted the thread on the back. It's going to be a bit tricky with gloves on. Just a bit tricky. There's the double portion of the double knot undone. For the most part, I see now there's still one thread of that hadn't unknotted. Was that another piece of the elastic? No, it's what I thought it was. Alright. Now we undo this first knot, which again should be fairly simple. Ah. Okay. Set that thread there. And now we need to get the soap again. So away with the rinse water and back into place with the soapy water. Now, one thing I've got to be kind of mindful of is the fact that because this is a blow molded piece of plastic, there are a couple little holes where water can get in there and will more than likely cause this thing to develop some kind of nasty, funky smell. So this isn't going into the water. I'm just going to be taking this brush, because there's only that white paint right there, and I'm going to be just doing a little like this, while being sure to cover up those holes. Just gently work on getting off any of that lint and nonsense that was on there. Much better. Okay, I can live with that now. Alright, so now we swap out the soapy water again with the non-soapy stuff. Rinse out our brush and use this to rinse. Lip. Q-tip and rinse the teeth. There. Set that off the side to dry. Set that off to the side to dry. I just cannot talk ever. Alright. So, we're going to go ahead and grab some paper towels real quick, and we're going to work on drying him up. And then we're going to start working on Dumbo. So, hold on to your hat, folks. We'll be right back. Alright. Set these off to the side like that. And we do the thing. And remember, be very delicate around these two pins right here, because they can, in fact, snap clean off, and you don't want that. Because you would probably be, well, you'd be very out of luck trying to find a replacement lower jaw for your Dumbo and or Archie. I'm going to use a Q-tip on the teeth for the sake of being delicate. His tiny teeth that twinkle just like the stars in space. His tiny teeth and him. Okay, now for the head. And just as before, you want to be careful on the painted areas. Just kind of blot at them. Don't rub. Otherwise, like I did back here with that toothbrush, we will take the paint clean off. Now it might just be my couple of puppets here because of the fact that they've had such a hard life that they weren't taken care of, so dust mites just started eating away at that old paint, and that's the reason why it's flaking off so easily. But regardless, you should still be careful when cleaning up your hard to find antiquities. Now we get to stuff paper towel up inside Archie's head and run it around in there until we soak up all that water. It's looking better already. Until that happened. Alright. So like I said before, we're going to set him off to the side now. Throw away what's left of the old elastic band. I'll just stick that in the bag with Dumbo's stuffing, because I'm not reusing that stuff. We are going to, however, keep the original pull string. Just kind of wrap that around his jaw so we don't lose it, and off we go. Alright, now we repeat the process with Dumbo. So first things first, well in this order, first things first, I'm going to remove the strings from his mouthpiece. Goodbye used up elastic cord. See, and just stretching it like that, I've already ruined it, so it wasn't going to work anyway. There. Got that string undone. Ta-da. Hopefully that was in frame. I wasn't looking at the camera, so I do not know. Okay. These gloves pulled on tight, and we move on to the cleaning section. Alright, now come on, let's do the thingy. Alright, we're going to start with the boot this time around because he actually has one. And of course, it's got a hole in the top, but no exit hole. So we don't want water getting in there, otherwise he is going to develop a funk, like I mentioned with his little buddy Archie over there. Make sure there actually aren't any holes in this. Okay, there are not. So we're just going to dip it in up to the laces. And then, because this is not painted, we can just go right to town on it. Dip it back in the water, like that. And now, swap out the soapy water for the non-soapy water, and we do the same. Just going to kind of move it around in the water this time, and do my best to not dunk the little hole in the water. Let me check. Okay, does not sound like we got any water inside the chute. So now we dry it off. And lest anything catastrophic happened, the shoe should be as good as it was ever. Good as it ever was, I should say. Keep pulling it out of frame, dagnabbit. Okay, there we go. Basically as good as it ever was. Now for the head. So now Archie and Dumbo's heads are clean. Let's go ahead and bring Archie back in, and we'll figure out how to restring them. Okay, so for this next step, what we're going to need is some beading wire, and we're going to need some round elastic cord, like this stuff. Because obviously, we got to replace that original elastic that was in there because it was worn out and it was going to need replaced anyway. As for why we need the beading cord, well, we might actually not need it, but I'd like to need it and not have it. Because how these things were set up, and after I finish explaining this, my editing self will throw an image on the screen here. But if you noticed, as I pointed out before, both of these have this like little dimple right in the top of their heads, like there, right here. When these were originally manufactured, there was a string of elastic cord that was tied right here, and that was threaded through the head, and there was a little tiny, like a key ring of metal, little metal circle right here, which the other end of the elastic cord was tied to, and it had a little sticker that said, "Do not pull this string," and that's because that piece of elastic, what was enabled the mouth to hang open until you would pull on the string and make him go blah, 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 blah. So the beading wire here, if I could remember words, for this, my initial idea is we might have to take some of this, put it through the hole there, feed it out through the mouth, tie some of the cord on, and then pull it back through. But we might get lucky and I might be able to just shove that through the top of the head and then feed it down, tie it on, and then pull it back. I don't know 100%, but regardless, even if we don't wind up using this to pull the cord through, we can use this to make a new little ring to hook the cord onto. You see what I'm saying, folks? So let's go ahead and, for starters, we want to open up our package of elastic cord. Throw the packaging into the bag with the rest of the refuse. Let's see. I should definitely have enough tension for this. Okay. First step is going to be reattaching the mouth cord to the mouth, obviously. So for this is also a step where I could use the beading wire, but I'm going to try to resist doing that as long as I'm able. So we're just going to go ahead and gently kind of thread that through if we can, because they used such cheap string that it's literally coming apart at the ends. And from what I've seen of these things, even mint in the package, I've seen these guys with the string like that just hanging out the back. Alright, so get that as thin as I can twist it. And shove the ends here. Ha! There. And then, as it was before, get just enough pulled through so we can do a double knot. So like that to get our first knot. Push that thread on in and pull it like so. Ding ding. And then we take the second little bit of the string that's sticking out, loop it around like that. Squish it through that little hole we had right there. And pull, and voila. So now, unless you've got someone who's just like wrenching on that, then that string should stay on there basically for the rest of this puppet's existence. Okay, so now we get to the point of figuring out how to do the elastic cord bit. because that hole right there looks like it should be big enough that I can just squish this down through it. So I'm going to try that, and we'll see how far we get with that. By Jove, it's working. Okay, cool. Saves us a couple of steps that I was going to have to try and figure out how to do. Alright, so just take the beading cord and push it through the inside of the head. Now, alternatively, you could get a pair of those needle nose pliers with the long tips, which I'm actually going to do, because I happen to have them at hand. And once you get enough of that cord through, you just reach up inside the head like this, grab onto the end of the cord, and just pull it on out, like so. So now, what you want to do with that excess cord is basically the same process you did with this string right here. Just kind of loop it through that same hole. I'm putting it through from the bottom to the top because that's the way I'm doing it. Not sure exactly how much we're going to need for this, so I'm just going to tie off a little double knot. Try and keep this as close to factory as possible. Put that through like that. So knot number one, tie that real tight. And then my gloves are getting loose again. And then loop number two, if we can manage it. Can we do it? Hope so. Aha, there we go. Okay. Double knot. Pull that sucker as tight as I can get it, like that. I'm leaving the excess bit because that's how it was originally, from what I can tell. Alright, so now before we go putting that in, the mouthpiece that is, we got to get the string back through the head. And this is the easiest part, from what I can see. You just have to kind of drop it in the mouth, like this. And then I'm going to use the needle nose pliers I've got here to grab onto it and just pull it through so it comes out the back like this. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to adjust the elastic cord so it's poking up from the top, like that. And now comes the fiddly part, getting the jaw back in without breaking it. So you just gently squish that in towards the hole where it's supposed to be. Please just go back in place and don't break. Please. That's it. That's it. Oh. No. I'm go squishing it with the pliers. Come on, Archie. Be a pal. Be my buddy. Just get the jaw pin back in place without breaking. Okay, good. It slipped back in. Now, what did I do with that letter opener? So next, got a wedge that up inside. I'm sure this was so much easier back in the factory when these were first made. Come on, get under that little groove right there. I'm putting this under so much pressure and scaring myself. So it was hard enough getting the pins out. Now I've got to get them back in. Now, like I said before, Archie, come on. Be my pal. I don't want to hurt you to break you, or break you to fix you, but if I have to, I unfortunately will. Actually, hold on. Where is the hole that's supposed to go in? It's right there. Of course, I was putting the letter opener right over it. Archie. Come on, little dude. That's it. Almost. Just slide that right in the hole there. Okay, just mush that back in place like it's supposed to be, and there. Archie's mouth is back in place the way it's supposed to be. So now we just kind of pull on that elastic cord. There we go. As he was intended, that is Archie, his mouthpiece, repaired basically. Hello, hello. Nice to meet y'all. Just not sure entirely how much tension is supposed to be on there. Because I don't want there to be too much tension, because as we all know, eventually that elastic is going to fail. So let's go ahead and try a couple different tensions. Let off a little more slack. More. Get it just right. Don't want it so little that the mouth is just going to like half close. Right there should be just about right. So what I'm going to wind up doing here is I'm going to cut off the string with a bit of excess on the end. And then I'm going to use the pliers and the beading wire to make a little loop to hook the little elastic cord onto. So one moment. This should do just fine for this. Go ahead and there. It looks like a candle. Alright. So Archie, little buddy, we're going to set you off to the side because we're going to deal with putting the hoop on there after we get Dumbo put back together. Alright. So as before, take that, only this time, shove it in with the seam ripper. You might be able to get away with using a toothpick for this, but I'm just using what I had on hand. So yeah. I should be able to reach up and grab that, which I am. Alright, so y'all saw how I did this before. Just going to go ahead and kind of twist this up, get it nice and stringy like that. Aim for the little hole on the back of his head. This time I won't even need the pliers. That's nice. Alright. And you don't want to get the two cords crossed, so don't go doing this. You want to keep them, as the old song says, you want to keep them separated. Pull the cord back up through. And now, as we did with Archie, we got to get these pegs back in their respective little holes. Thankfully with Dumbo here, because he was made a little more slapdash than Archie was, made a little more cheaply, his plastic is a bit more flimsy, so it should be a bit easier to get those pieces in. Just gotta remember where the hole is. There it is. Stretch out his lower jaw a bit. And we just kind of push the plastic back in place like that, and aha. Adjust the elastic cord. And ta-da! Well, yep, it's good to be part of the family again. All right. So there we have them. And because the little hole in the top of his head is smaller than the one in Archie's, I almost don't need to put a ring on there, but I'm still going to do that. Isn't there a song about that, Dumbo? You should know that reference. You've been in someone's attic for the last 40 years. Yeah, well, they play the radio pretty loud. Dumbo, stop that. Alright, so as I did with Archie, I'm going to go ahead and snip that off extra long so he looks like a candle. And now we get to make the little loop so we can make sure that these aren't going to fly back inside the heads anytime soon. Right, Archie? Whatever you say, Chief. Which end is the top end? I think it's this one. It is. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. No, 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 no. It appears that I almost made a grievous error. Because I just about went to let go of that and it was about to spring out of there like the spring in a talking toy. Alright, so keep that under pressure. Bend it this way. There we go. I hope. Alright. Now I need my other pliers for this. I need to take this piece of wire, just bend it around into a circle. Don't know quite how big of a circle I need, but that should be good enough, I think. That's not even close to a circle. What am I talking about? Okay, it broke off. Alright, so beading wire is a bit more fragile than I thought it was. Okay, so now as far as this part goes, after a bit of irritation and nonsense, that's about the best loops that I can get for my skill set and, using needle nose pliers. So this next step involves just basically tying these strings onto one of these little loops. And now we actually do need the seam ripper because I pulled the string even farther out of his head. So we're going to just kind of shove it back through, take a little bit more of the tension off, and ta-da! That officially, and I think this might be a first of its kind video on YouTube, that is how you repair Archie and Dumbo ventriloquist puppets from the Johnson Smith Company from the 1970s. At least that's how you repair the heads. The next part is the fun part, with big air quotes on it. Well, the easy part, I should say. We're just going to be cleaning up their outfits and repairing Dumbos. And then the hard part comes, or should I say the next hard part, and tracking down the rest of the pieces to put them back together. So stay tuned for the next part, folks. Alright everyone, for this next bit, we're going to be cleaning their clothes. So without further delay, because this video is getting long enough, let's get to it. For starters, as with the heads and the boot, we're going to need some soapy water and some not soapy water. Ta-da. And we're going to start with the soapy water because ta-da. And for this one, I'm going to keep both bins of water right here on the table because we got to go from one to the other, from one to the other, back and forth to get the decades of grime and dirt and yuck out of this stuff. Now some of you may be wondering why I don't just throw these in the washer. That's because with this old material and with how cheaply they were put together, it is very possible that I would put these in and by the time they came back out they would be bare threads. That's another little thing to put in that trash bag. A little nasty bit of yuck from the back of his pant leg. So without delay, let's get this started. Go ahead and shove Archie's cloth in there. We'll put Dumbo's in at the same time. And we just kind of agitate it around with our hands. Little squishes to try and work the water and the soap suds through the material. And in doing so, get the dirt and grime out. Now with Archie's outfit, it's going to be a little bit of an easier job. Looks like his colors are running a little bit. Then again, it could have been like that beforehand, and it's just being brought to light because of the fact that, the fabric is now wet. Actually, no, now that I'm seeing that, that's the threads from the inside of the shirt. That's how thin and such this fabric is. I'm trying, folks. I just cannot talk, but I'm trying. Alright, now let's try and focus in on Dumbo's outfit exclusively. Alright, straighten him out again. Good look. Kinda use that toothbrush on areas that seem like they need it. Just like with the head of each of these figures, you don't want to scrub too hard or you will cause damage to this old fabric. Oh wow. See that water, folks? When I put it in, it was that color. Good gravy, that is nasty. It almost looks like gravy. Ew. Okay, so it's at this point that we're going to, well, I'm not going to waste the water just yet. Let's go ahead and check the rest of the outfit, see if there's any more spots that could use a quick scrub with the toothbrush. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the toothbrush to this sleeve. And we dip his body in this one. Now we take care of Dumbo's outfit. Also being a bit more careful with this one because of all the seams that I ripped trying to get the head off. Put him into the rinse water and we rinse. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I'm going to Louisiana for some crab meat, mac and cheese. Alright, I'm going to go refresh the water. Then I'm going to do this same maneuver a second time. And maybe a third time. I'm not sure how much more this fabric can take. But we'll do what we can to try and fix these two up. Because that's the point of this whole little series. Dummy Diaries is a project in which I take all these little project puppets that I've been just kind of collecting over the last few years, and I bring them back as close to what they're supposed to look like as possible. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen the promo that I made for this already, so you know what the deal is. Alright folks, this is going to do it for part 1 of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Part of the reason why we're going to have to, wrap it up here and cut it and all that is because the next step is just putting these guys back together. I did my best when it came to the clothing. Archie's clothing came out actually pretty good, but Dumbo's, on the other hand, unfortunately, we've got a bunch of staining left on them, some weird little spots, and the vinyl for his shirt cuffs and for the cuffs on his pant legs, that's unfortunately just kind of ruined with age. The red just kind of bleached out of it, but it's fine. It kind of adds character to the little fella. But with that said, folks, as I just stated, the next part is putting them together, which is fairly easy, but it's going to be the hardest part of the whole setup because I have to find the missing pieces for these fellas. They had a couple weirdly shaped hands, which I'm going to throw up on screen now, an image of. Voila! As well as the fact that I'm going to have to track down another red boot like this and 2 black ones. Same shape, same size, just in black plastic, not red. Because, well, that was just the only way that I could get these guys in my collection at a price I could afford, was to buy a couple of, some people would call them beater figures. But it is what it is. I'm glad to have them in the collection, and I'm glad that fixing the mouths turned out to be a far easier affair than I thought it was going to be. So with that said, folks, up to you, talking to all of you up there. If you like what you've seen here today, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to help support the channel in some way, go ahead and, what's the word here? Go ahead and get yourself subscribed to my Patreon. It really helps. Really it does. Truly. And that Patreon I will leave a link to in the description for this video. With all that said, I'll use him since I'm out of frame. With all of that out of the way, this is your old pal Oxleymations saying, later y'all, and we'll see you in the next one. Nice try, Archie. Nice try. Anyway, later everyone.